Standing room only. All right. No. All right. Happy Friday, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening for what is the first of our 2 states of the school. They're the same presentation both times, so you can check it off your list after tonight. But if you really want to come back, there will be we're going to do this again in a couple of weeks on the upper school campus. But I'm really grateful for you taking time on a Friday late afternoon in our busy lives to come on up and hear a little bit about the school. This is something we do every year, and it's an opportunity to kind of share I think somewhat high level, but also I think, with some specific details around like things that are happening and highlights at the school and things we're excited about. I always like to start, 2 things. One, if we have Wordly set up as a translation app, if anybody, you can see it here, but also if you use the QR code, you're welcome to use that to connect. We also have some people online. Welcome to the people who are online. And there will be people who will be watching this later. So welcome to people who watch this later. We always like to start with core values and the vision and the mission. And, and again, particularly over these last few years as we've expanded and all the excitement of evolving from a JK8 into a JK12, reminding people and reaffirming that our vision, mission, and core values haven't changed. And in fact, what's happening with this expansion is that we think that we're actually better delivering on that vision, mission, and core values. But on both campuses, those remains a living and breathing piece of who we are. And one of the great joys of being a head of school of a school that has little kids is what happened here today. In fact, it happened yesterday. So this is like the second version of this. But yesterday afternoon, I was up here at a meeting, and we had a couple high school teachers, and we were walking out, and we were talking a little bit about the difference between being at a high school and being on a lower school, middle school campus. How does that feel? And we were looking around, and there's all these kids out there. And I'm like, hey, there's just so much joy, like on a lower school campus, and there's joy in a high school campus, but it's kind of different kind of joy. And all of a sudden, these 2 kids came running up to me. Mr. Silver, can we share our core values handshake? It's like, and so the teacher's literally like, is this like a setup? Did you did you do this? Like, no, it's not a setup. This just happens like all the time when you're on a lower school campus. And so this is the core values handshake.
Say what you mean, bring it up, and down to me. Get on you, and you, so use our core values. Be kind, be curious, be your best. What's my name? What's my name? Angie. Say it louder. What's my name? What's my name? Rebecca. Rebecca. Please, dancing, dancing. That's our handshake.
It's just like I get to do this. This is the job I get to do every day, right? No, but I just love that. I mean, again, these are things that are real and lived, right? And this was not part of an assignment. They just did this. Actually, I don't actually quite know that. Heather might know the whole story. I don't actually know when it started, but they started doing this handshake. So 90 years. We've been talking a lot about that this year. On the left, there's a photograph of the building of the Village of Friendly Relations. I have told that story many times through the years, particularly in this 90th year. I love thinking about the Village of Friendly Relations and what that represents. And for those who, I won't go through the whole story, but for those who aren't as familiar with it, the little houses that surround our stage in the middle of campus were built by our earliest students in the late 1930s. And they were built as a working village. And the idea was it was a period of great uncertainty in the world. And people concerned about peace and what does it look like to help children learn to work together. And so they went downtown. They actually got a loan from the bank. They got all the supplies. They built a bank. They built a general store. They had the newspaper. And in fact, some of you may have seen the Happy Times. A group of students this year have kind of brought back the Happy Times. But the Happy Times is the newspaper. We still have some of those from the late 1930s. And it really was a working bank. And one of my favorite artifacts, and I'll actually pass this around people because you'll be careful with it. But this is an artifact from the 1930s, and it is literally a ledger. And inside of it, it has these are little checks to the Village of Friendly Relations Bank, and then these are deposit slips for the Village of Friendly Relations Bank for the deposits. And then it has every child's name. And again, as a reminder, this was a boarding school, small, 20 to 24 kids or something like that at this time. And in here, you have you can't see it, I'll pass it around, but you've got you've got, it used to be worth something. You've got there's the ledger. And my favorite is it shows amounts going up and down. And then literally my favorite one, and I've told this story before, my favorite one is one of them of Walter Moses. It just says gone. So most of them have an amount of money and it kind of adds up and goes down. And Walter's in April of whatever year this was, it was just gone. But so anyways, so people can, if you want to look at that. But this idea was it was real, right? These are real things that kids were interacting with and learning from. And so then, on the right is a picture of the upper school campus as they were putting the sign up on the classroom and administrative building last spring. And what is so exciting to me is that we continue to do these same things today. We don't have a working bank on campus, but the things yet, right? I mean, they haven't asked, right? They haven't. But what we do with students is give them real opportunities to do things and make a difference. And so, for example, this is a photograph for those of you, many of you don't have middle schoolers, but for those in the middle school, last spring, as part of a social impact and learning project, 2 students wanted to create a mural in the middle of the middle school area to speak to our commitment to community and belonging. And again, we've all lived through middle school. Middle school can be challenging socially. And these kids were how do we create a visual way of showing that everybody belongs? And designed by students, there was support of a professional artist, but designed by students, created by students, painted by students, and now it's there, right? So now it's this living testament, kind of like the Village of Friendly Relations, this living testament to what these kids are doing. And there's kind of an endless list of examples. But the other one that I was thinking about is next Friday, and I think this is going out in this weekend's Hillbrook happenings, but next Friday, downtown in front of City Hall, we have an 8th grader who is trying to organize a rally against poverty. And so anybody's welcome to join in front of City Hall next week, and they're going to talk a little bit about poverty and the roots of poverty. And I don't know exactly. I know he's tried to invite some people to kind of join. Again, an 8th grader, right? This is his way of being able to say, I want to make a difference. I want to say something about something that's important to me. And then in the upper school, we have multiple examples of ways, all of our 11th graders just started internships. And so they're doing internships in places like MACLA, which is the Museum of Contemporary Latino Art, and actually the executive director is a Hillbrook parent. Downtown Association, somebody's with a dentist. There's a whole range of organizations that they're engaging with, and it's just part of the educational experience. It's not like something that's off to the side that kids have to figure out on their own. And again, that has been true since 1935, and 90 years later, it is very much true today. Talk a little bit, and to kind of frame today's conversation, talk a little bit about Vision 2030. And so back in 2021, 2022, we started the process of Vision 2030. We have a long history of strategic planning. And so, I've been here for 17 years. In my first year, we created something called Vision 2015. And coming out of that resident teacher program, all of our wonderful residents, like that was something that we designed in those early years. We were one of the first schools in the world to have a one-to-one iPad program. So that was kind of the Vision 2015 era. Vision 2020, we led to the creation of the Scott Center. We rebuilt, and you'll hear a little bit about this later, but this entire campus was rebuilt. So this space, the hub, the amphitheater was new in 2015. The JK2 playground, there was a whole kind of like revitalization of our campus during that period. And then, and again, 2022, we were like, okay, so like what's next? And obviously a big piece of that became the high school. But interestingly, when you actually look at Vision 2030, like Vision 2030 didn't create the high school. Vision 2030 was like saying, okay, like what are the things that we're going to look at as we expand and grow? And one of the things that was striking to me about Vision, like the creation of this, similar to this moment today, there was a period of, it felt very uncertain. And in fact, when we were doing the strategic plan, and if you take a moment, it's over there, the actual copy of it. In the introduction, we talk about like how unsettled people felt, and to be clear, it was like right coming out of COVID. We talked about Silicon Valley Bank, all of a sudden we were doing bank runs, crazy weather. We'd had like these kind of some crazy storms. Literally, one of our meetings got interrupted by like a massive branch falling out, and like the one time in our school's history we've like had students leave out through the back gate because it was like so much wind. Anyway, so like there was kind of this like crazy, like, it felt like this intensity. And what we said is like, what we can do is to like reaffirm and double down on our commitment to our vision, mission, and core values. Right? Like that's the thing we in these moments, like that's what we can control. And so what does that look like? And we kind of talked about these kind of three broad buckets. One, prioritizing balanced excellence. Two, creating a community hub. And then three, broadening our impact. And so I'm going to talk about each of those a little bit. So the first, balanced excellence, it's this idea that you don't have, oftentimes there's a false dichotomy that I think is created. Like your school can either be really academic and really rigorous, or your school can be good for children. And so, or your school can be like, caring and nurturing and create a sense of belonging. But so there's kind of this false dichotomy. We actually believe, not only is it a false dichotomy, but you can't have academic rigor and having students like reaching their highest potential without creating a culture of connection and belonging, and without teaching the quote unquote soft skills, which are actually the skills that make such a difference for students as they move on to top colleges and on to life. Like those are the skills they need in addition to like a strong academic foundation. But those two things can't exist without each other. And so we kind of coined this term balanced excellence, and we pointed to kind of three parts of it. So first is the idea of purpose. And so the idea that like the learning here is, grounded in like a purpose and meaning. So for, some of the examples that we were just talking about with like the social impact and leadership projects, like those are the obvious ones. But even on like a day-to-day basis, teachers are always thinking about ways to make it meaningful for kids, to create like a sense of purpose, like a sense of like, how do you, and so again, going back to like the village of friendly relations, like how do you have that experience where like you're doing things that are real, that actually hold like you have a reason to want to do it, and it's not just happening to you. The second thing is challenge. And this idea of academic rigor, this idea of like stretching kids. And so you often use the analogy of like a rubber band, so you want to like pull kids and like stretch them without breaking them. So you're always trying to like find that like, proximal level to like, help them find, and right, to be clear, like for different kids at different moments, it's different, it's dramatically different. And so like, you're always trying to like, with teachers who know kids really well, with a whole group of, challenge coaches and other people who are like working with kids, you're really trying to find like, what does that look like for each kid at different moments? And then finally, pathways. And this is particularly relevant as students get older. We do start to create both different levels of classes, but also then different options. And then, this is particularly, again, right, with the creation of a high school. You have lots of pathways in a high school to have kids kind of pursuing and actively engaging in things that they're excited about. So why does this matter? I have shared this a number of times over the last few years, but Challenge Success is an organization it's now tied to Stanford University, but it's an independent organization, but a woman named Dr. Denise Pope, who wrote a book back in the early 2000s called Doing School. And Denise Pope was, she was at Stanford. She was talking to students at Pali and Gunn, so like, the two big powerhouse public high schools in Palo Alto. And she was struck by how these kids who on paper were just, doing great, taking lots of AP classes, getting really high grades, participating in, 14 different activities, but how these kids had this total lack of like purpose, and this huge levels of anxiety, huge levels of depression. Fast forward, 20 years, her organization is really focused on that. And so they spend a lot of time talking like, how do you design school to help that not happen? And so one of the things that she does is they do a lot of surveys. And so this survey is from a few years ago, and this survey is actually of Challenge Success schools. So it's a little sobering, right? So Challenge Success schools are like, they're not like every high school. Like they're actually a pretty elite strata of high school. Like there's schools that like knew enough to want to be connected to Challenge Success. They're mostly either large public schools in competitive areas or other private schools like Hillbrook. At these schools, they're still reporting 90% of students are sleep deprived, 75% report exhaustion, difficulty sleeping, headaches. And then this is the statistic that I can't ever get past. Nearly 50%, 1 out of 2 kids at these schools, rarely or never find school engaging or enjoyable. And again, these are high school students, right? So, but like that's like stunning. The idea that 1 out of 2 kids in a good high school go through, and to be clear, like these are kids who are getting good grades. It's not that it's just the kids who aren't doing well. It's like it's back to that thing of doing school. They're doing well, but there's no meaning to it. So, we think about that a lot. Like, I mean, that is not the school that we want to be. Certainly not, in the younger grades, tends not to show up as much in the younger grades, and then definitely not in upper school, right? As you're designing like a rigorous, challenging program, but it has to have purpose and meaning. So I wanted to share just a few examples of like how these things play out in reality. So first, in terms of purpose, it was like I wrote about this right before the winter break, but so I don't know, a month ago or so, I was in this room with a group of 4th graders watching Heather up here introducing the Upstanders Club to the 4th graders, which is kind of the somewhat of the SIL, it's social impact and leadership experience, some of the, they model some of the things that older students are doing, but very age appropriate. And this wonderful experience of watching these 4th graders enthusiastically, first of all, learning about the opportunity so they were, Heather and the other adults had kind of like come up with these ideas of like, you could be peacekeepers on the JK2 playground, organizing the lost and found, becoming captains of the creek, helping out in the library, taking on leadership roles. So it kind of introduced that to the students and then had them sign up. And they were like all rushing around the room, signing up. They could only sign up for 3, and except maybe they could ask Heather, like if they really wanted to do a 4th, they could ask. That wonderful 4th grade energy. But again, it's it's just giving these kids this sense of purpose, and again, particularly in 4th grade. 4th grade they're the big kids in the lower school, and they really feel that. And for any of you who've had 4th graders, go through here or have 4th graders, that experience when they enter 4th grade, like one of the ways that often shows up is with buddies. That they're like the first year that they're big buddies, and it's a huge deal to them. Like they take it really seriously. So it's a great age to get them excited about. And again, it's going back to a little bit of like the village of friendly relations, right? It's like, how do you take care of your campus? Like, how do you take care of your community? And how are there ways that you engage in that? So challenge, I'm going to go up to the other end. This is the other end of the spectrum. So this is advanced studies classes, and I particularly focused here on some of our 11th grade English and history electives, which are awesome. And I've actually been doing some of the reading that they're doing. So the books there, that set of books is the reading from this fall's dystopian literature and executive class. And so that was just, so that was what I know a kid pretty well who took those two classes. That was what she read this fall. And it's like a really wonderful mix. Like if you can't read it, like the dystopian literature was both like Brave New World, like from the 1930s, all the way up to some more contemporary, The Handmaid's Tale from the 80s or 90s, I believe. Another book, Never Let Me Go, Nobel Prize winner Kazuo Ishigori. So it's this great mix of dystopian literature, and they were doing these really sophisticated advanced activity, like doing literature reviews, comparing literature, doing book reviews. They wrote one book paper where they kind of chose a contemporary topic, and then they had to like apply some of the books that they'd read to how that showed the topic. So it's really sophisticated, really at college level reading and analysis that they're doing, and very unlike what you would experience in most American high schools. Like this is like deeply engaging. The kids are super fired up when they're doing this. The executive, the class that I'm particularly partial to as a former history teacher, is tracing like the American president from, over the summer they read a biography of Washington, and then on through for the fall went up to Lincoln, and then in the spring they're coming up to contemporary day. And it's been this really interesting, so that they've been reading biographies. So for example, one of the biographies, An Unfinished Portrait, is a John Kennedy biography. And with those biographies, they've been doing kind of historiography. So like actually like understanding the writer, like so looking at the historian who wrote it and then analyzing that. So like what's the perspective that this person brings to this? And then of course they've also been having this really wonderful opportunity to take contemporary politics, Trump, Biden, others, like people who they have experience within the last their lived life. Obama to some degree, although even it's amazing, even juniors in high school right now, like Obama's too far back for them, so like they don't really remember him. But taking kind of like that contemporary lens on historical moments with presidents. So again, like super challenging, super engaging, and they even memorized the Gettysburg Address, which I loved. It's very short for those who don't. And then finally for pathways, and we've showed this before because it's just such a great example, I think, of pathways, is our math program. And again, from the youngest grade levels, we have a variety of ways we're challenging students with, particularly with the partnerships between homeroom teachers and challenge coaches, a series of math competitions, and then starting in the upper level of middle school and on to high school. We just have an incredible range of classes that we're offering, and we really are focused on making sure that every student is being met where they are and challenged and pushed. And so the green boxes represent the math classes that we are teaching this year, from 7th grade on up through 11th grade. And you can just see the huge range. And then as we also often talk about, and this isn't today's conversation, but if you want to dive in more to like math and kind of how this works, what we often talk about is, there is a flexibility in terms of students moving between this. So you're not necessarily like stuck after 7th grade. Like there's no way that you'll ever, if you really want to push yourself, there are ways to do that. And so, and then on the other hand, like for some students, like that was just too fast, and they can find their way back into a slightly different path. So another piece of one of the things that we talk a lot about, and I think tied to this idea of balanced excellence and tied to like how you actually talk about learning, is this idea of like making learning visible. And another thing we've often been talking about the last few years is, in some ways, like sometimes like the upper school is like introducing things and doing things that are then like really powerfully like coming back down into the Los Gatos campus. And then in other situations, things like the Scott Center have actually grown the other way, right? Like fully developed a bunch of Reach Beyond programs here, and then they've kind of like evolved into what it looks like for upper school. In terms of this, like this has definitely been something that the upper school from like day one, the last few years, has done a really good job of, and that is creating opportunities for parents and others to interact with kids, to talk about their learning. And so last week on Wednesday, the top pictures are a group of upper school students. They had their exhibition of learning. The third picture over Jasper was a ninth grade. The whole ninth grade did a debate or a mock trial, and they put industrial agriculture on trial. And like, half the group was, arguing that industrial agriculture was like important and had like vital to like our current modern society. The other half was saying it's like damaging and harmful. And they'd been, like the work that they did, pulling in like really sophisticated data and looking at, like large scale data frameworks. Anyways, like so super interesting activity. Performed in front of like a whole group of parents and other adults. And again, this idea that like, you're not just doing this in class for just your teacher on a Friday afternoon, like you're doing this for like a real audience, and like it's a real topic, like it's something that's actually interesting. And to be, I'm sure kids came away with like super sophisticated and like kind of nuanced understandings of both the pros and the cons of a pretty complicated contemporary topic. The 11th graders shared a little bit of what they had been doing. They did a literature review this fall on a topic of their choice. On the far side, Vivi's was particularly interesting. She had taken a 1950s like a atlas from San Jose, which was showing kind of demographic data from San Jose. It was like 20, 30 pages long. And it was both kind of combo like art project and analysis. She's really interested in space, and like particularly like green space in urban environments. And so she had kind of like overlaid an analysis that she was doing on different pieces to the original San Jose based. Again, you really need to see it to like appreciate it. But again, it was like this really interesting, she's very artistic and then also very academic and intellectual. And so it was kind of like this beautiful like blending of these two passions for her. Sophia on the left is really interested in fashion, and so she actually had this series of mannequins in the hallway, and it was showing a whole series of women's clothing throughout history, including a Rosie the Riveter version. And Fatima did a video on conspiracy theories, which was really fun. But the thing that was great is like you would go into and you go in front of any of these students, and again these are 11th graders, like so they've been doing this for a while, and their ability to have a conversation with anybody about their topic is so impressive. Which is the lead-in then. So these are photos from last spring to the exhibition of learning, which is happening on this campus next Friday, and like strong encouragement to join that and to not just pay attention to your child. You should definitely pay attention to your child and celebrate that's a huge, right? That's the thing you're going to remember, but and you should do that. But then like the best part about this is it's the chance to engage with other kids. And again, it's teaching them that skill that like what you're doing has value. And I want to know about it. Like, tell me what you've learned. And again, obviously like depending on the age, like you may or may not get the answers you always expect, but it's part of like this process, right? Of like helping kids understand that when you do something, it matters. And we want to know about it. And it doesn't just matter to you. The other thing that's happened over the last few years is the development of this competency-based learning architecture. And this is something that is definitely going to be, moving down into the middle school over the next few years. We don't have an actual, like a firm timeline on it, but it has really shifted the way that students think and talk about learning in the upper school. And so in this case, I'm actually going to show a video because they do a much better job than I do of talking about it.
I think that kind of the thing that I love about competency-based grading is it allows the teachers to grade us in ways that allow us to grow a lot more.
It's kind of a way to give people more individualized feedback on different competencies, like through something that is quantifiable.
It empowers us to be able to focus on the individual aspects and individual skills that come with our learning.
Instead of just giving you an overall point value or percentage on a specific assignment, instead splits the assignment into the various key components. So it's no evidence, then developing, then approaching, then proficient, and then exemplary. That lets me figure out exactly what is going into my different grades and exactly what I should improve, instead of seeing a 7 out of 10 overall and having no idea why it's a 7 out of 10.
It really helps people and students understand what they're actually being graded on and what skills they need to work on within their classes. Say I'm writing an essay, right? And in the past, I've struggled in my critical inquiry, but I have been really strong in synthesis. I'm actually able to understand and see what it is specifically I need to focus on and work on in the future.
It's really easy to make connections between courses. I'm thinking about argument construction in English, and then I have that same competency assessed in math, and then I have that same competency assessed in history, and then I have that same competency assessed in integrated arts.
Also gives people, I think, sometimes more leeway in some instances for mistakes. One mistake on one section of something doesn't always affect everything else. It doesn't really change the way you're assessed, like as a whole. You don't like get a ton more leeway, you're not like punished more. It just gives a system that gives you the opportunity to grow in certain places more, and it gives you the ability to target those places that you need to grow more.
It feels like it should be constraining because it means that we have less grades we can physically get, but in the end it ends up being really empowering for us as students, because it means that we can actually like really take our learning into our own hands, or we're actually able to see like small changes and small improvements and small progress incrementally, rather than just being left with a number.
Like, you could think about it like a Lego set. Like, you're taking each piece of your learning profile and then building on one another. It's easier to see how the pieces all fit together when you can see them broken up.
Interested in learning more about that. There are other opportunities to dive deep into competency-based learning, and certainly people like Ilse Doman up here, our chief academic officer, would be happy to talk to people about that structure. What I love about this system, and again, you pick up on it when the kids are talking, like they're not talking about like, so I got like 75% of my tests and my quiz scores are really high, but I'm really struggling on homework. Like, they're actually talking about like the learning, like, oh, argument construction. And I looked at argument construction in like 3 different classes, and like, how is that happening? It's real learning that's happening. And so anyways, I think it's really exciting, and it is one of the great benefits of having been a new high school, because I think there's lots of high schools that want to do this. It is very hard to do it once you have been established for a long time in a system. So it is one of the, I think this is maybe one of the most interesting things that we've been able to do as a high school that truly benefited from being new. So another thing that's happening this year is that Ilse, who I just mentioned, is leading a performing arts audit. And for those who are not aware, we have a long history of an audit process where every year we look at a different program and do kind of a deep dive. It's an internal look, so it's led internally, so it's led by our teachers, and with the recognition that they're professionals and they're experts, and so like providing space for them to learn and reflect. But then it also involves a lot of outside looking as well. And so this is, our performing arts team across the JK-12 has come together for this conversation. Many people may know Kristen Engineer, who is kind of, is one of the leaders of that group. But they've all come together, and so they've been spending a lot of time. And again, with this is kind of their ultimate vision, it's like, how do we continue? Because in some ways we are there, but in other ways, like, how do we continue to become a destination for visual and performing arts and design and engineering? Like, how do we, attract and retain and make sure that those programs remain so vital to who we are and what this school looks like? And so here's just a few examples of ways over the last few years that this has, been, I think, kind of shown up in kind of exciting ways. We have a lower school choir this year with our new lower school music teacher, which has been really well received, and created a great space for kids who are excited about singing at the younger grade levels. Early stages of the middle school band. Some people may be aware that this was actually an SIL project last spring of one of our ninth graders, who really was trying to like help us create a band. And so he helped Kristen kind of like launch this, and it has continued. And then this year we've added some upper school visual arts teachers who are really truly exceptional. And some of the art that was up last week was amazing that the students were doing. other thing I can't not mention, we have 2 great musicals coming up. Mean Girls, which is the upper school, but also actually will include some middle schoolers, is on April 23rd and 24th, and then The Little Mermaid, which will be awesome. Will be middle schoolers in late May. And so really this program has really come a long ways in the last few years. One of the things that is happening with this performing arts audit is that these teachers are also spending a lot of time looking out. And so they've been visiting other schools, they've been connecting with other organizations, both in San Jose and outside San Jose. So that is actually a plug. If you're somebody who is really connected to the arts, let also know, because it's been fun for them to kind of connect and broaden their reach. Also, Hillbrook Athletics has really also come a long way. And again, this is where we have our first varsity team this year. We have a varsity basketball team, which also means that we have both a varsity and a JV basketball. Like I said, we have two basketball teams, both quite competitive. And so Gully knows the stats. What? The varsity is 6-2, and the JV has also been very So again, this is one of those things. It takes a while, right? With a small, as early years of a small high school, but it's a program that we're building really intentionally, and that has also then, I think, really captured a lot of energy in the middle school. And so, as people may know, our girls basketball, middle school girls won the championship last year, which was really awesome. We had we actually had a growing group of really strong runners. At the Dia de Muertes, the top 3 runners were all Hillbrook connected. One of those people is the coach, but then he won it. He's like a 2:40 marathoner. But then the other two Hillbrook high school kids came in 2nd and 3rd. I also know that the top 2 runners in the fall for the middle school meet were both from Hillbrook, and so there really is there's a growing excitement about the athletic program. I will say there's a long history of athletics at Hillbrook, but with the high school in particular, there's just a sophistication that's coming, and it's exciting to see that continue to grow. What size are you targeting for the high school? So eventually we're targeting 300. Yeah. The college. So the other piece is college counseling, which is a program that obviously we did not have prior to having an upper school, but has been growing. So Charlie, right here, was our second hire, and so Charlie, has been here since before they were in high school. So she has been slowly growing this program, and just some of the highlights that have come from having a college counseling program. That photo up there is of a group of Hillbrook alums from a variety of ages, but they're all in college, and one is actually out of college. And they came back and they were talking with the high school kids and talking a little bit about college and sharing their experiences. And it is really wonderful. Again, we've had many kids graduate from 8th grade through many years who then got off to great colleges. And so a chance to kind of reconnect with them, and the connection that they make with the kids is really powerful. But so those visits have started. We've had 33 different colleges. Actually, I think it's more than that, but 33 plus. There's 33 on the list. Schools who have visited. Charlie has started to build a whole series of programs. Clearly mostly focused on the upper school, but there also have been opportunities and continue to be opportunities for families in the JK8 who are interested in learning more about what college counseling looks like. And just if you're interested, here's just some of the schools that have been on campus this year. It's a huge range of big public schools, small liberal arts colleges, East Coast, West Coast, even some international. And again, this is they continue to come, and their colleges are really interested in connecting with us. And again, Charlie's doing a great job of really building that connection and helping people understand what we have to offer. So shifting gears a little bit. That's Duke and Izzy. They were visiting the first graders. Duke and Izzy are my dogs. They're also on the birthday card. For if any of your children have gotten the birthday card, they're on the birthday card. Duke and Izzy are they're the favorite members of the Silver family. So one of the things that also can, again, reminding of Vision 2030 came out of 2021, 2022, post-COVID. There was a real focus and hope around rebuilding community, and what does it look like to make Hillbrook a community hub? A piece of that And I mentioned this, the mural that the middle schoolers did, like they took the commitment to community and belonging, which has been designed over the last few years, but this idea of who I am matters, who you are matters, who we are together makes a difference in the world. So that is something that we've deeply reaffirmed as we continue to build and strengthen this community. Colleen in particular, but also many people in this room have been building lots of programs and connections. And so again, a lot of you in this room, I see, come to the Friday coffee hours. We also have a version of that, the upper school, which isn't quite as often, but a regular cadence of programming in the upper school. Some of the Scott Center family events. Again, I know, remember, the limpet, what was it, the limpet crab counting, the financial activist playbook up at the upper school the other week. Instructional rounds. If you haven't done that, instructional rounds are really fun. It's like an opportunity to actually get into classrooms and see teachers in action and with kind of an analytical lens of like what they're doing and trying to understand practice. So those are all of the ways that we're like trying to enable people to connect with and learn from the school. We also created this year a more formalized Deja leadership team, and so we have our director of HR, Heather, the head of lower school, Gully as our head of middle school and also our director, Marisol, who runs the RBS program in the upper school, David, who is our new middle school director of student life, Emerald, who is our upper school director of student life, and then DeAndrea, who's the director of the Scott Center. Like this group, and I'm part of these meetings as well, like meets on a regular basis now and is like really trying to pay attention to like what it looks like across the JK-12. The other piece that we've really talked about this year is continuing to like strengthen some of the relationships and partnerships that we have. Breakthrough Silicon Valley is an organization we've been connected to for a long time. In just a moment, I'll talk in particular around our Reach Beyond Scholars. Peninsula Bridge is a similar organization just up the peninsula. And then Private School Village is an organization that is actually really a family organization that serves families of color, but that is then like partners to try to help people engage with and connect with independent schools. The Reach Beyond Scholars, and again, many of you, I believe, were at the benefit last year, but Bella Berkeley, our original Reach Beyond Scholar, who is now a lawyer at Cooley LLP, but back in Boston, went to Amherst College and then to Harvard Law School, and amazing woman, not young woman. She was young when she was here, but she's now in her 30s. But Bella, as she spoke at the event, really named like the transformative impact that Hillbrook had in her life. And she, as I said, she was our first kind of Reach Beyond Scholar. We now have 31 students, 4 at the middle school, 17 at the upper school, who are part of this Reach Beyond Scholar cohort. And all of them are, or most of them are going to be first in their family to go to college, which is one of those markers that is transformative, not just for that student, but for a family. And it's one of the things that organizations like Breakthrough talk about all the time. It's like by giving students that opportunity, giving students that chance to change their lives, it changes the life of their family. And so this is a program that is incredibly important to the school. And I do think harkens back to our earliest years as a school that, from the beginning, the school served students who were wards of the state when it was a boarding school back in the 1930s. So that for whatever reason, parents weren't able to take care of their kids. And so like, it's kind of an echo of that day. And it's something that we're really proud of, particularly as we've built this upper school program. The final category, this idea of like broadening our impact. Hillbrook has always been a school that has been at the leading edge of conversations about education. And, as we head towards, 2030, we're committed to, even furthering that. And so, some of the, like a historical example, Sunset Magazine highlighted the Village of Friendly Relations in September 1939. There's this great article back in the 1930s highlighting what we were doing. In the middle is an article by Ilse Doman, which is called Sit Still or Move More, which was a study that came out of a lot of the work, and it was also with a group of people who also outside of Hillbrook. But the study came out of a lot of work that Hillbrook was doing around 2010 to 2015. And so I mentioned, we were one of the first schools to have a one-to-one iPad program in the world. And what that interestingly led to was actually this deep dive into flexible learning spaces. And the reason that is because prior to iPads, like schools had all of these computer labs. in school, and then schools were trying to do laptop programs with younger kids, and they were like it was like super fixed experience. And if you think about iPads, the thing that iPads do, particularly for like middle schoolers, is you can take them anywhere. And so all of a sudden, like it created this conversation of like, what should learning spaces look like? And again, we've kind of taken it for granted around here now, the wiggle stools, the flexible tables, the ability to move a room. But learning wasn't meant to be, we are sitting here in rows, right? But like all learning is not meant to be stuck in rows. Like it's meant to create opportunities to move and learn. Right. So her paper is talking about they did a particular study with some 6th and 7th graders here at the school, talking about how creativity was enhanced by giving kids choice and control over being able to move. That old idea that you tell a child like just sit still. I know we still say that, you still might say that sometimes, but but particularly for learning, like trying to create an environment in which they can wiggle and do it in a way that isn't distracting actually makes a difference. Finally, we were on the cover and then the major article in Silicon Valley Business Journal this fall about the high school and about the fact that we are, this urban campus, which again is super unusual. There's only one other, Notre Dame is the only other school that's really downtown that's trying to like fully leverage what it looks like to be an urban campus and to get kids out into the community. And with that, one of the things that happened this year is we did, have the ribbon cutting. Both buildings are open. That campus is fully functioning and running, and it's just really exciting. And I love the fact, people like the mayor who was there at the ribbon cutting have come to so many events and have been so supportive. Like San Jose is so excited to have us there. Other places that, again, a number of you I think have probably either at least heard of, maybe attended. We've now had 3 years of Conversations for Good, which is an event that really enables us to engage in like big conversations about important topics. This last year was around redefining impact. It was DeAndrea's first foray as director of the Scott Center, and brought in a combination of people, some Hillbrook parents, mostly people from the community. And if you haven't been, this is a really fun event to just go. It's like super thought-provoking, lots of big ideas, and just a great opportunity to kind of engage with a group of other people, like in like kind of thinking like about big things and what role you can play. Very much that Hillbrook question: what matters to you and what are you doing about it, and providing that impetus. The Scott Center is 8 years old. And so with DeAndrea's arrival, we're really excited to start a strategic planning process. And so we are encouraging people to join us, to share ideas and to share your excitement and wonderings, or maybe your confusion about the Scott Center. So there will be others as well, but these two we know for sure will be opportunities. The 13th will be a Friday coffee, so just right after Flag. So if most of you are, I guess all of you are families on this campus. So like if you join us after Flag on the 13th, if you want to share and talk a little bit about what the Scott Center might look like, there's also an opportunity down in San Jose, and then there'll be a few others that will be some evening events as well, if that's easier for people. But so look out for that. We're really excited to see kind of like what the next chapter in the Scott Center's history is. And then the last thing I want to share, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kimberly Yarnell for a moment, is one of the things that we are also very attuned to are the kind of the long-term financial trends and the challenges of the financial model that we have as a small independent school. And so, none of this is surprising when you think about like what it takes to run an independent school. But you've got these competing needs, but competitive salaries for teachers. We have an extraordinary group of teachers living in an exceptionally expensive place, as you all know. And so trying to make sure that you're able to provide compensation that enables them to do that. Programs like our Reach Beyond Scholars and our flexible tuition program, which makes sure that Hillbrook's accessible to not just to families who can afford it, but to a range of students, and to bring together a truly diverse cohort of students. Continuing expansion of programs and offerings across the JK-12, right? Your kids are here. We're always trying to like think of like ways to get better. Like what are the resources involved in like constantly doing that. And then the last piece of this is we've really as we've made this change into a JK-12, like we're competing with a new set of schools, and it's a more competitive set of schools with more resources and schools that are doing things on a different level. We're excited about that challenge, and it creates financial, complexity. And so, that's all a way of saying, like, we are deeply grateful for your commitment to the school, for the fact that that you've chosen Hillbrook, and we are very mindful of like how we can continue to balance that. And so a piece of that, in addition, obviously tuition is a piece of that, but another piece to that is philanthropy. And so Kimberly Yarnell is going to talk a little bit about philanthropy.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
I think it's evening now. Good evening, everyone. As Mark said, I'm Kimberly Yarnell, and I oversee both our advancement and our admissions team here. And right now, I'm was handed my hat for advancement, which is our fundraising arm. And as a fundraiser, it's really important to me to start every conversation with a thank you. So I want to thank everybody in this room for all that you give to the school, for choosing the school, for partnering with us in so many ways. And what's really neat is that when I get to wear my other hat, which I do sometimes throughout the day, which is my admissions hat, I get to see the other side of that. So what I'm also going to thank you all for is for choosing Hillbrook, for being incredible ambassadors. I spent 3 hours today talking to families who are really excited about coming to Hillbrook, for whom the mission resonates with them, for whom the core values resonate, and who are sharing stories about being on campus and like talking about the community and the kids and the kindness. And that's all because of you choosing us and partnering with us. So thank you. Oops, I forgot to. There we go. So one of the ways that we make the everyday extraordinary is with the annual fund. So that is very much what Mark was saying about, trying to keep all of these competing priorities together. The annual fund affects every child and every teacher every day. It's our annual giving, and many of you have already given this year, and I'm so grateful. I'm pleased to announce that we are 89% of the way towards our goal for the annual fund. Woo! Which means we've raised $1.15 million this year, and that is already being, used on the campus every day. And so thank you. The other way that we support the school is when we think about access. We just launched tickets for the benefit on, I'm going to get the date correct, March 14th, changes every year. And so our benefit every year really goes towards supporting flexible tuition and that Reach Beyond Scholars program. The benefit is how we guarantee that Hillbrook's community reflects the diversity and the vibrancy of the community of the South Bay. And it's a great time. So buy your tickets, consider sponsoring. If anyone is interested in the Super Bowl, you may have heard that we have Super Bowl tickets. Their bidding goes live on Monday. So I'm just making a plug for all of the different ways to get involved. I really want to say the benefit this year is being held at the San Jose campus. The theme is prom through the decades. It's going to be so much fun. Come, if you can find a photo from your prom, send it in. There's going to be a slideshow. This is not kidding. There's going to be corsages. We're going to have such a good time with this, and it really is a chance to celebrate us as a community together. So I encourage you joining us. Yeah. It's at the gym? Yes, it's at both. It's actually at both buildings. It's going to be very exciting this year. Yeah. Yeah, there's some logistical challenges that I'm really excited about, but we're doing it. We're doing it, Dan. Yeah, exactly. Just gonna come down and see if we manage it. So the other thing that Mark discussed are strategic visions. And we do that strategic planning work about every 10 years. And that's how the school really sort of continues to reinvent itself and evolve. And capital campaigns are the way that we fund that vision. So approximately every 10 years, many nonprofits and schools launch a capital campaign. And that is just that provides the type of investment that you need to transform a campus, to transform a school. So in 1990, we had our first, what I'll call modern capital campaign. The school community raised approximately $1 million which was tremendous for the school at that time. And they built Founders Hall. So they built the lower school and middle school gym. And we recently found the plaque that once the gym gets a little touch up, we're going to put back up there. And, you know, there's about 70 names on the plaque of people who invested in the school and really wanted, that's what the school needed at that moment. Fast forward a few years, and in the 2015-2020 campaign, really we transformed the campus as Mark described. The amphitheater, which has become such a heart of the campus that many alums come back and talk about it, and it wasn't here when they were here. Like, they're like, I remember the amphitheater. It's like, it wasn't here when you were here, but great. Like, but it's because, right, like, it is Hillbrook, and I think it is for so many of our admissions families. They come and they stand there and they hear about Flag every Friday, and that's what they want to be here for. That campaign raised about $7 million to make all of that happen. And many people in this room, that's my phone. Oh my gosh. Sorry. Yeah. I did actually turn my phone. I'm so mortified, but I did actually turn my phone off. My husband has like breakthrough privileges, so that's him. Where was I? 7 million. Thanks, Free. So we raised $7 million. Many of the families at the school today were a part of that. And I know everyone in this room and on this campus is benefiting from that investment that families put in so many years ago. So here we are now. We are in our next capital campaign, the Opening Doors campaign. We started in 2022, and we are looking to raise $17.5 million. We are 96% of the way there. We've raised over $16.5 million to expand into a JK-12. And the expansion into a JK-12, as Mark has said all evening, is really affecting every student and every community member every day. And it's been beautiful. One of the great privileges of my job is I get to spend time across both campuses. So, you know, today I spent time with the junior kindergartners. On Monday, I'm going to be over working with the 11th grade ambassadors. And to see those pathways and that growth is just, it's such a gift. Something that's really special about this campaign is we have over 55 families who have contributed so far. Those families are coming from the lower school, they are coming from the middle school, the upper school, and we have over $500,000 coming from alum families. These are families whose children will never benefit from this process, but for whom their experience in the JK-8 was so meaningful that they wanted to make sure that our students had this opportunity to continue their Hillbrook experience. So you will all hear a little bit more about the campaign in the spring as we bring it out to the entire community. We do want to make sure that everyone who wants to be a part of this investment has that opportunity. And finally, I want to talk about those alums. So we've been around for 90 years, which means we have a lot of alums, and it's really fun to find them. I actually was recently at a meeting in San Jose and mentioned where I was from, and you know, this one was like, "Oh, I went to Hillbrook," and she's, you know, my age, and it's been a minute, and so she's going to come in May. I gave her the save date, but we are welcoming back all of our alum this May. I'm going to look 29th. From 3 to 6 on this campus, there will be the Lucas Angelo Memorial Basketball Game. There will be alum panels where we're going to invite alums back and have them be interviewed by current students about their experiences. There'll be some storytelling. And we also want to open it up to the community. So if you're interested in coming back and talking to some alums and being a part of a usually beautiful Friday afternoon on campus in May, I invite you to do that. Thank you.
So last two things, too quick. One of the wonderful things that Michaela, by the way, Michaela Humans, our director of communications, who helped with the slideshow, by the way, she's really good at the slides. Michaela, this year, you may have seen this wonderful shirt that has all the brands over the years. Love that shirt. So one of the things that we are in the process of doing is we will have a new brand coming out later this spring, early next fall. So you can see where it was in 1935. You can see where it went to that 1975 tree has become very trendy. And now, you just wait. You can find out what's happening for 2026 and beyond. Dan, yeah.
Will there be an opportunity for those that attend Friday Flags to get a first opportunity to get some of the swag?
Oh yeah. At the new swag. Yeah. That can be arranged. Yeah. That's right. Those who attend Flag will be rewarded, and you go to Flag, you get the swag. That is the best new, like the little Scott Center little van there, the little swag wagon. Yeah. All right, and then the last thing I just want to share. Richard Kinsella, who passed away just a couple years ago, was literally our original student. Like the way it's described is, he showed up at like 3 at the school. He was like the first student they had. He grew up, he lived on this campus, graduated, went off through high school, stayed on the campus, even though the school only went through 8th grade. And he was throughout his life, then continued to come back. And so, I've been here for 17 years. In my first year, I met him because he would come to every musical and then usually like one other event every year. And he always had this hat on. Into his 90s, he was a figure skater, and he would like do like spins. Miss Mary, JK teacher, and then longtime Hillbrook parent, did an interview of him, which is like amazing. But Richard, every time Richard would come back, he'd say, everybody needs a base, a home that grounds them and makes them whole. Hillbrook is my place, my home. And I just love that message. And again, I think ever since I've joined this school and have thought about this school, this is a 90-year-old institution, which has like been changing people's lives for a really long time. And so like what we're doing right now is like super exciting. And like a number of you are like relatively new, which is so great. And you're part of something that's been around for a long time. And that really has, again, to change people's lives. And so we're really grateful that you're out here tonight. Hope, that this 90th has brought us all types of opportunities to kind of celebrate Richard and other people. And just grateful for your time. We will hang out here. You can join us here at the parade. That's such a great shot. You're welcome to stay around. There's drinks and some food. And if you have any questions or things, please let me know. But thanks everybody for coming.